I always love to say to home sellers, folks, you would never not list with me due to pricing. If you want to go to the moon on the price, I'll go there with you. We'll go there together. But I know that that's not what you want. That's because we don't want to put your home on the market at the highest possible price, but rather we want to place your property in the market at the highest realistic price. By saying this, it accomplishes two things. First, it removes the possibility that I will lose the listing because they no longer think that they have to shop for pricing with other agents. And number two, because they want the highest price and I want the realistic price, it provides a professional synthesis where we can now have a meeting of the minds. Now, Bob, here are some other points that I'd like to say in the closing here. Folks, now that we have reviewed some of the properties that would be competing with yours, knowing what you know about the market, if you were a buyer coming into the market, what do you think you'd offer for your home? Now, the reason this may be helpful is that it forces home sellers to evaluate value from the prism of a sophisticated and marketing savvy buyer as opposed to a self-interested home seller. It can be helpful to point out to home sellers that want to push the envelope on price that the homes in many cases that are selling with the best results are with the home sellers that are not just selling for economic reasons, but they're also selling for lifestyle reasons. For example, they want to get closer to their kids, to a warmer climate, or to right size. Therefore, you are now emancipating home sellers from only looking at pricing or the selling of their home merely from an economic prism. My last thought, Bob, ties together my first point about demotivating home sellers from listing with us and Gino's pricing-related points about tone, timing, and confidence. I believe that we demotivate home sellers when we appear to be overly prepared in our attempt to suppress their natural desire to emulate most realtors and push the pricing envelope of their home's value, at least initially. We do this with all of the inevitable graphs and pyramids that we have been cranking out for decades, intended to caution home sellers regarding the pitfalls of overpricing. We then, unfortunately, at times add to the visuals counterproductive, if not arrogant and demeaning dialogue, as in telling homeowners that if IBM stock was selling for $95, do they think they could sell their own stock for $100? This insufferable condescension, in my opinion, as it not only establishes a terrible tone, but it is also disingenuous, is very harmful. It's disingenuous because the same agent who says this to the home seller would never chide a buyer by saying, if IBM stock was selling for $95, do you think you could offer less? When as a buyer agent, they would most likely be suggesting that their buyer do that very thing, offer less. But instead to imply to the home seller that their price was already predetermined with forensic-like precision is on its face insulting and demeaning to home sellers in my view. So too when agents say things like, folks, I'm like a surgeon, and hopefully they do not try this analogy with surgeons, and if I make an incision even 1 inch wrong with my patient perhaps will die. This preposterous melodrama plays well at the real estate seminar du jour, but in my view, this ploy demotivates home sellers by exposing them to the breathtaking desperation being used to induce a lower price amongst home sellers. Another example of demotivation is when an agent actually brings a pricing video, with or without popcorn, to school the home seller, or because it suggests to the home seller the following, in my opinion. Folks, I'm not smart enough to discuss pricing on my own, so when I went to a convention, and while going up and down the aisles in a trick-or-treating-like ritual, I bought at a pricing video booth a video that will show you the pitfalls of overpricing, because obviously I know in advance you're going to be unreasonable about price. I ask you, would you be more impressed with a lawyer who does estate planning but has to show you a video on wills because other lawyers can explain the subject better than he or she can? These tactics, in my opinion, only serve to demotivate because it suggests that we are on a mission to fight them against what they perceive as their self-interest. And even worse, we need graphs, charts, videos, and monumental mischaracterizations like buys determine the price in order to equip us for this debate, this clash, this conflict, this challenge. Again and finally, I think the number one reason why somebody does not secure a listing is not because of the price they recommend, not how they put together their CMA, but instead because of how they communicate during this most consequential discussion. I do not think anyone watching this video should ever price a home 1 penny more or 1 penny less than you typically would. Instead, it is my fervent desire that you never again lose a listing over the way in which you discuss or present price, or due to a lack of confidence in your ability to display wisdom. I believe how we communicate as an industry is even more important than our so-called image. When it comes to image, our industry is prodigiously photoshopped, we're resplendently dressed, we invented personal promotion, and for 50 years we have been writing our own glowing reviews. And of course the highways are full with our luxury automobiles. Therefore, we are not going to be challenged moving forward based on our image. Unfortunately, I believe the way in which we communicate our value is lagging behind. And this threatens to undermine our future viability. Now let's see what Gino thinks as he closes out our pricing points. Gino, what are your closing thoughts?
First and foremost, anytime a home seller mentions that they want to get some different price opinions, I suggest you say the following. There are hundreds of different opinions, but there is only one set of facts on what homes have sold for and what buyers are willing to pay for properties. What we should do is look at the facts and then go with our opinions, which will also take into account the world-class marketing and branding that Berkshire Hathaway HomeServices and I can provide you. We also need to point blank tell them, but only after we've built consultative trust and do not demotivate them, that their home needs to be not just on the market, but in the market. Especially because buyers today have pricing history data. We need to also tell home sellers that when they want unrealistic gains, that they need to help us defend their proposed value. For example, folks, the value of the market has gone up 10% over the past 2 years, and you are looking for a 30% bump and have no renovation receipts to support this. I'm going to need your help here to support this value to the buyer's agents. Again, what this accomplishes for you, the marketing agent, is that it continues to introduce collaboration throughout the entire pricing process. We need to also tell the home sellers that buyer's agents have a fiduciary duty to their buyer clients. That might mean telling the home sellers that we will need to discuss that evening any and all factors that the buyer's agents might use to lower the price due to the conditions of the home. By strategizing with the homeowners on how to defend their home's value against buyer agents and buyers' threats to their price, it not only creates an amazing bond, but it becomes a great example of how the realtor appreciates the fiduciary duty. I also emphatically suggest that you deliver a pre-listing packet, or as we like to say at Berkshire Hathaway HomeServices, a pre-marketing packet. There are multiple benefits to doing this, but since we are talking about price, the pre-marketing packet that we have discussed earlier removes you from being the bearer of bad news. Instead, the objective information is being sent before pricing conclusions are being made. By doing this, and I'll use Allan's words here, you are tenderizing the home sellers even before you even arrive. But again, don't put a suggested price. And for many years, my personal favorite pricing closing strategy question for the seller was, what price do you feel we should use to create value in the eyes of the buyer and get someone to decide to buy your home versus the competition? And lastly, the reason I wanted to take time to speak to pricing and all that it entails is that the professional value of full-service companies and their associates is being challenged more than any other time in our history, in my opinion. This means that we have to show greater value in all that we do, including not only how we price properties, but the skillful way that we involve the home sellers in the process. I hear many industry experts saying that real estate agents will be disrupted on the listing side, and I emphatically disagree. Instead, the threat is to have our value and thus our fees diminished. This is why we need to be able to maximize the real and perceived value of our skills in every facet of the real estate agent and client experience. Regarding how we present pricing, I must say that neither Allan, Bob, or myself believe that our suggestions to pricing represent the only approach to pricing presentations. Rather, we are hopeful that everyone who watches this video might be compelled to thoroughly examine the manner and methods in which they professionally manage the critically important subject of pricing. In the final analysis, we want you to be so skillful on how you present price that the only way you could lose a listing due to price is when you decide to walk away from the listing because you cannot agree with the home sellers on the pricing strategy. As opposed to having a home seller demotivated to list with you because they lost confidence due to how you represented the subject of pricing. Thank you for your kind attention and continued success.
So there you have it. The keys to a very unique approach to updating your language to win more listings. Are you truly committed to changing your mindset, mastering the dialogue, and winning more listings? Then let's make this happen.